Thank you for coming in, and welcome to our first of 3 town hall meetings. I want to welcome everyone, and we're gonna go through a few slides, and then we're gonna take some questions and try to be as informal as possible. We have quite a few people here, but I think we can all manage. So I just want to open with the fact that we are working this summer, Hausner staff and teachers. We're looking forward to opening our campus in 70 days, which honestly, after moving from being on campus to remote learning in about 72 hours, this seems like forever, that we have a really long time, but we know it will be here before we know it, but it's good perspective. I also want to take a moment just up front to thank the Hausner leadership team, as well as the board risk management committee, for all the work that's been going on, really starting months ago to get ready to reopen our campus. Almost as soon as we stopped being on campus, we started getting ready for how we could reopen campus. And so there's been a lot of behind the scenes and in front of the scenes work with that. Isaac Kontorowski, who is the chair of the risk management committee, is here with us tonight. I think a few other risk management committee members are also here, and they, as well as the leadership team, will be available to answer questions at the end of the slides. So again, welcome and thanks to everybody. I just want to go in to a little bit here. I put the word current here in red because, as you all know from watching the news and from all the newspaper articles and things out there, things are changing, and they change pretty rapidly. So when I talk about current guidelines, it really could be different by the next time we meet in about a month from now. But right now, we are looking at Hausner of having cohort groups of students of 12 students with one primary teacher for most of the day, with some other teachers both zooming in and also being present in the classroom. We'll talk more about that in a moment. The students will spend most of the day in their classroom with one teacher. We're also really fortunate to have a lot of outdoor space, so we're going to look at doing as many things outdoors as we can as well. We have walked the campus. In fact, we just did this yesterday with members of the risk management committee. We're looking at setting up desks in each of our designated classrooms that'll be 6 feet apart. We're going to require students and staff. Now, this is one of those things that is possibly going to change. I'm seeing different reports on what's going to be required. But right now, the requirement is that anyone who's on our campus is wearing a mask or a face shield. And again, that we would be 6 feet apart, whether in the classroom or out of the classroom. Some general requirements. We are going to require that students and staff not have a fever when they come to campus. And I just put in here the CDC guidelines. My whole life, I grew up thinking 98.6 was normal. Apparently 100.4 and below is normal. So, so I just want to put that out there. Parents will not be allowed on campus. So we're going to check kids in from the ring road, and also those who walk or ride their bike at the 450 gate. We'll do a temperature check at that point, assuming it's 100.4 or less. The students will be allowed on campus, and the parents will go on their way. The only visitors we will allow on the campus are those that we require to be there to make a delivery or repair. And of course, all of those folks will be required to have the proper PPE. Parents, of course, in emergencies will be allowed, or if you need to pick up your child for some reason, but for the most part, we'll try to do that by having you call the office, let us know you're there, and we'll escort the student out. So we minimize the number of people on the campus. Regarding just sort of under the general heading of health, we know there are some families who are not going to feel comfortable sending their child to school. And also we're going to ask people to really keep children home if they are showing any symptoms of any sort of illness. And of course, if they're running a fever. So we will continue to offer our lessons via Zoom so that there won't be any missed educational time because your child's homesick. This is actually one of the things that this unfortunate situation has actually been an opportunity to make sure that we can offer school to students remotely when we need to. This is, again, one of these things that county health directives are what we're going to rely on. If a student or staff member is exposed to COVID-19 as it stands right now, it would require a 2-week quarantine before that person comes back to school. If a staff member or student actually tests positive, then we will refer that to the county health directives at that point. It may mean at that point that we have to close campus. It may mean that we have to close certain classes on the campus. We're going to follow the guidelines. To help us with all of this, we are looking to hire a healthcare professional who will assist us both with health checks, working with staff and families, and also working with other health providers. Because even though some of us have learned a lot about health and healthcare and viruses, we are not doctors or nurses. Cleaning and sanitation, we're gonna make sure that classrooms, door handles, high touch areas are cleaned and sanitized during the day. Any door we can leave open, we're going to leave open, so it doesn't require that doors be open and closed. One of the things we did on our walkthrough yesterday was look at the fact that our bathrooms, the doors can be left open and privacy maintained because of the shape and the direction of looking in, so we're going to leave doors open. Students are not going to share textbooks or supplies. Again, something we've talked about for years about sharing. This coming year, no sharing. You get your own set of markers, your own crayons, your own pencils, your own books. We will have students wash their hands following restroom use, after recess, before lunch, after being outside, a lot. They'll wash their hands a lot. We're also going to have hand sanitizing stations placed throughout the campus. Incidentally, right before we went on our remote learning, we had ordered a bunch of these stations and they were back ordered for several weeks, and now we actually have them. So, and we're ordering some more. The instructional delivery, as I mentioned before, in the lower school, each group of students will be with a general studies teacher and receive most of their instruction from that teacher. We are still working out the details for Hebrew and Jewish studies. We really want the kids to have some time with those teachers in person, but we also recognize that some of the classes will still need to be done by Zoom. The advantage in this scenario will be that rather than all of you being home with your kids being the co-teacher, there will be an actual teacher in the classroom with the kids to help them with all of the things that they need to do to access the materials and the lessons and all the prep work, etc. Same thing goes for music and art, PE, making library lessons. There'll be some in person and there'll be some Zoom lessons. And some of those details I hope to be able to share a lot more, including possibly sample schedules the next time we meet. That's what we're working on right now.
Hey, Carol, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. This is Hillary. I'm having trouble hearing you, and I don't know if anyone else is as well.
Yes, me too.
Okay.
Though suddenly it became like
muted.
Suddenly it became really loud, and then it became really quiet that we can barely hear you. Now we can't hear you at all.
Okay, is this better?
Yes.
yes.
Thank you. And I'm sorry.
So what was the last thing you heard?
Oh, it was amazing. Someone else is going to mention it right now.
All right. Okay, well, if you missed anything, you have the slides and I'll go back over it.
It was with the Zoom, with the teachers, the PE teachers and the end of the Jewish studies teachers.
Okay, all right. So, okay.
One slide back.
One slide back, and I just went one slide forward. So hold on. Okay. So the lessons will be a combination of Zoom and in person. Can you hear me? Thumbs up? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. We are working, this is what I said, we are working out the details of that. I don't have much more to share about that tonight, but the next time we're together, I will hopefully have a sample schedule and can show you exactly how that's going to look. All right. We will continue to do our community rituals or Havdalah or Tefillah or Kabbalat Shabbat through Zoom. And again, with the in-classroom support of the teacher, the general studies teacher. And what we're excited about is what we learned also through this experience is that community members, families, people out of town, people in Israel, people all over the world literally can be part of this. And we feel that that's really helped build our community even more. So we will continue that. We have 4 staff committees who are working on various pieces of our preparation. And I want to acknowledge the staff who've just been tremendous through this entire process. We have a committee that's working on actually planning training for parents, students, and staff for when we return to campus, including setting up appointments for students to come with their parents to visit the classroom. This will apply mostly to the younger kids, but so that they can come in, see what it's going to look like, walk through the procedures in small groups. They're also working on things to show the students and how to teach them. It's all going to be very different from what they're used to, but we have some amazingly resilient kids at school. We're not concerned about them adjusting. And they'll also be working on training for staff. We also have a committee who are working on social emotional learning strategies. We know that this period has taken a pretty big toll on our children and on all of us probably too. And they're working on some strategies for talking to the kids, helping them understand, helping them cope with the stress and anxiety they're feeling, and helping them reintegrate into school. We know that's not going to be just an easy, just come back to school, etc. So they are working on that. They're also working on how to talk to kids in an age-appropriate way about COVID-19 and why all this is happening. Then our third committee is looking at community building, including rethinking our community rituals, how this works in the world now. And then finally, we have a group that's trying to come up with ways, activities for the kids to do at lunch and at recess that will be appropriate, safe, and not too boring. Smita and I watched a webinar a few weeks ago where the physical exercise was the kids walking around the field 6 feet apart. We're hoping to do better than that because that, to me, I think would get pretty old pretty fast, but that's what they're working on. Finally, just a few additional general updates. We are going to discontinue the SAGE lunch program for the year. This will mean a tuition adjustment, and we'll be getting details about that to you as soon as possible. We just did not think that was going to work to try to get kids through a lunch line or deliver food, etc. So we're going to discontinue that for the year. We are looking into providing aftercare. I noticed a lot of parents asked about aftercare in the form. I don't have that confirmed yet, but I know that's of interest, and we're going to do our best to provide that to offer that for families. We're also looking at providing after-school Hugim classes. Those will be over Zoom. So to continue the Zoom Hugim option for kids who want to be able to do that. We are going to close our middle parking lot. Parents don't typically park there, so it doesn't really change much for you, but some of our staff do. But we're going to use that space. We're going to convert it into outdoor eating and play space. And for any of us who've been here a while, we closed the parking lot before during the construction project, and we all adjusted, and I think that space will be well used for outdoor activities. We right now, as of today, have the enrollment to support 27 cohorts of 12 students each. We're going to use every space available except for maybe 2 rooms right now as classrooms, full-size classrooms. We'll outfit them like classrooms, but they're not going to necessarily be where those classrooms used to be. So that I'll share more details at our next meeting as well. So our next meeting, as I've mentioned, is July 8th. So we'll have a few more details there and hope that you can come to that. And I think with that, we're going to go, I'm going to stop sharing. And open it up for questions, and I'm going to invite other members of the leadership team and also Isaac to help with the questions. And we will, let's see, let me open up the chat window. I've got a few people helping. And let's open it up to questions. If Kelsey and Smita, you want to help? Anybody want to ask?
There aren't any so far in the chat window.
Okay, all right. Anybody want to just dive in? We can take real hands or virtual hands.
I have a question, Carol. Who wants to help?
Yes.
Who wants to join us?
Good question, Isaac. Yes, we can use lots of help.
Great question, Isaac.
Yeah. You know, so let me just take just a few seconds here just to say that it's been definitely Carol and the school staff and parents, board members, everyone's been doing a tremendous job of trying to keep our kids safe and, operations happening, just continuing. So definitely, if anyone wants to help out in any way possible, feel free to reach out to us. And, we definitely have a long list of things to do. We've actually, as part of the risk management committee, we've been increasing the number of meetings to be had from now until the reopening of the school. And that's intentional so that we can be as prepared as possible. So I wanted to say.
Great, thank you. There's a question in the chat I can see now about testing protocols. Right now, that's actually a topic of conversation with risk management. We do not have a testing protocol at this point other than taking temperatures in the morning and asking people with any sort of symptoms not to come to work. Let's see.
Some summer camps not requiring masks. Is there a specific directive that kids wear masks? Also, will kids be required to be socially distanced inside class?
So, yes, in terms of the requirements on masks, everything that I've seen about schools and right now requires that the kids have masks. But as I mentioned before, I don't know who posed the question, but some of that is shifting. We're hearing that might change, that if there is social distancing, a mask may not be required. And certainly kids are not going to wear masks all day. They can't very well eat lunch with a mask on. And we also know that having a mask on, it's pretty hard to wear a mask all day. So we're working with folks to figure out exactly what the true requirement of that is. We're going to do our best to keep kids socially distanced in the classroom. And I'm not sure it's going to be 100% effective because I think children are children and we're going to just have to do our best with that. I saw actually a question about the hours of school.
Hours, yes.
Yeah, currently our plan is to keep the school hours the same, although what we are thinking about is having sort of a staggered start to the school day to facilitate being able to take temperatures and make sure everybody's fever-free before coming in. And I'm going to be sending out something, we'll have to do it by alphabet instead of by grade, because I know many of you have multiple kids, so probably like an A to F time to come, a G through L, etc., so that we can stagger and not have such a big backup in the morning. We are used to that. We've had 2 start times, but we'll probably go a little bit longer on the start time. But essentially the 8:30 to 3:15 school day will be our hours.
Have you looked into clear masks for the teachers to wear so that children can see facial expressions?
So the teachers are asking to use face shields instead of masks. And again, we're trying to get a clear understanding on if those are effective or effective enough for stopping the transmissions of COVID-19. And we actually have a medical person researching that right now. So yes, we hope to be able to do that. The teachers would much prefer having a face shield, both for the comfort and also so kids can see, most of communication is nonverbal, we know. So the kids need to be able to see their face.
How will the small cohorts work with kindergarten?
Same as everything else, 12 to 1. One teacher, 12 kids.
How are the middle school groups going to be determined, and will the Zoom students be participating with the in-person students, or will they be separate times?
So, so Jody and Sharon and I are actually working on schedules right now to figure exactly how that's going to work in middle school. We are seeing some some information that suggests that kids can continue, as long as the kids stay in one group, the teachers can come in, so we can continue to offer the different classes and the different spaces. The kids who are on Zoom, what we're imagining is a sort of live feed into their assigned classroom, so that they're participating alongside their classmates all the time. And in terms of placement, the placement will work as it always has, where we have taken in the feedback from parents, and we will try to, obviously, they won't be in a group of 24 anymore, they'll be in a group of 12, so it'll be a little different, but that's.
And they'll still be heterogeneous groups, and based on, you know, all, again, like Carol said, social considerations, all of those things that are so important to middle school. And for anyone on this call that is a parent of a middle schooler, we are really looking to maintain the independence and autonomy of the middle school experience, despite the fact that they'll be in these homerooms.
What are the plans for middle school? How will cohort teachers be able to stay for an entire day with their cohort and still teach other classes?
So that's a great question, and one that, as Carol mentioned, that we're working on very much. What I can promise you is that we will be as creative as possible to make sure that these individual groups have their kind of homeroom teacher, but also that teacher should, you know, if they teach another subject, that they're able to do that, whether they're being kind of relieved by another teacher, or whether we've scheduled it so intricately, which is what I'm assuming that we will do, that everything is beautiful and seamless and makes sense, but that's going to take some time. But that is the plan.
One thought we'd had on that was that, for example, if you're with your science teacher, say you're a 6th grader and you're with Liat, you might be with Liat for the week, and she would do science lessons live with you, and then she would be the person who helps you Zoom with your humanities teacher, for example. And then the next week, maybe your humanities teacher is with you and she's with a different cohort. And it may be that we change it every couple of days instead of every week, but we're still creating that.
Yeah.
And as I said, that will be probably a big focus of our next meeting, to really roll that out for you.
So is there a mask that Hausner has found that are comfortable for the kids, so we can get them now?
Well, we've had a lot of people who've suggested different masks, and I have to say, I think like everything else, if you find a mask that works for your kid, awesome, buy it, send them to school in it. We're going to have some that are being provided by the state of California. They, I suspect, won't be the ones that kids all like the same as, but you never know. I personally have been trying different masks. I've worn a different one every day for the last week or so to see what I like the best. I think it really is a personal preference, and honestly, I haven't found any I really like at all yet, but I'm still hopeful.
Rebecca, I may have missed this. I think the answer is yes, but is the plan for kids to be in class every day, 5 times a week?
Yes, the plan is for kids to be in school 5 days a week, to have Hebrew every day, 4 days a week, to have Jewish studies every day, to have math every day, to have science every day, recess and lunch, and all the things that are normal to the extent possible. That is our plan. Some of it will be on Zoom, some of it will be live, but we want the kids at school with us.
please confirm that students can continue via Zoom even if they are healthy.
Even if they're healthy, even if they are just not feeling like they want to be back at school yet, absolutely. And as I said, I really think this is one of those sort of silver lining situations where having kids learn remotely, we've proven they can do it. We've proven we can do it. And I think we're going to keep doing that. And I hope ultimately that means kids stay home when they need to stay home. Kids can be with family when they need to be with family, and whatever they need to do.
How do you envision coordinating the physical delivery of classes with the Zoom one?
Well, I envision Smita figuring out how to set up a camera that can really help the student who's on Zoom feel like they're in the classroom and interact, and having maybe a student, you know, depending on the age group, but particularly with the older kids, having a student who's monitoring and making sure they're able, that student is recognized and participates. And again, I think we'll be so much better at this than we would have been 3 months ago before we ever tried Zoom.
Yeah, we will just go on with the training and do the same. Have you considered doing temperature checks by parents in the car? So not intimidating to kids.
You know, it's not a bad idea. I think we'll think about that.
Carol?
Yes.
I think something we had talked about is having everyone in the car have their temperature taken, which I think could take the edge off of.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, we could do that. I think we'd be interested in suggestions and ideas around that. One advantage we also have is that the JCC camp and other places are having camps, and we're going to really study how they're doing all this and learn from all the things they're doing right.
I want to add that I think this particular question is also coming from, you know, the vantage point of what if we're a new family, our child's not familiar with Hausner, and they're at the youngest entry point,
Yes.
so in particular for that age group. So I just want to throw that into the.
Yeah, that may not be the most welcoming thing the first time you come on campus, we're pointing this thing at your head. So, and part of that, I do think if we do these by appointment, sort of gradual introductions to the school with all the families of particularly the young kids, hopefully that will help. And you know, the teacher can have their temperature taken, they can have their temperature taken, and hopefully we can normalize it very, very quickly.
Will the cohort stay the same until there is a vaccine, or will they be switched around at intervals or after holiday breaks?
The current plan is not to switch them around for the school year. I mean, I don't know when the vaccine is coming. I hope really soon. But right now, we do not plan to switch that at any point, because we think that, you know, we just need to build the groups and have the cohesion and not have a big change for the kids.
If a child has to stay home due to illness or COVID, would they be able to dial into the class via Zoom from home?
Absolutely, yes. Able and encouraged.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, of course, we would want, if a student is truly sick, for them to rest and be able to get better. I think that we certainly want to make sure that there's that time, if they're not well, that they can rest and get better, and we'll support them in any way that they need. But absolutely, if they're able, this is one of the great things about this, that they can now Zoom in, and you know, it allows for a lot of opportunities that we didn't have before.
Can we find out about classroom assignments early, so as we think about expanding our bubbles, we could possibly socialize with those families?
What an awesome idea. Yes. I don't know how early, but we will definitely get that information out as soon as we possibly can. I think that's a great idea.
Is the plan to provide the same amount of Hebrew instruction like it would be in a normal year, whether online or in person?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Um,
I jumped in.
Do you want to elaborate, Sharon?
Yes. So because Hebrew will be part of it, or most of it probably on Zoom, and the kids are divided. They will be in their cohort class, but in the classroom, once Hebrew starts, they will put their earphones. We are getting a sound proof earphones. They will put earphones and they will have their Hebrew class. However, we are planning about once a week to have in-person Hebrew class. We're going to take them outside. We may be going to take them to the gym. We are working on that as well. But as far as times a week, it's going to be the same.
So what happens if a child gets hurt or cries? Are teachers required to stay 6 feet apart still?
You know, I think we're going to have to cross that bridge when we get to it. No, I think in that scenario, the natural tendency will be to comfort the child in the best way we can. And we're just going to have to do our best with that.
We had rules before. Okay, are you thinking of contingency plans in case physical classes cannot happen?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what we shared tonight is plan A, and we're also working in the background on plan B of going back to remote learning and what that will look like and some of the improvements we would make based on our experience this spring. And right now, both plans are being developed.
Then Luis has a suggestion about if anyone in a kid's teacher, staff, parents has COVID, kid, teacher, staff will self-quarantine. Someone with active cases at home is high risk.
Absolutely, yeah, that's what we would ask, yes.
Would personalized learning continue?
Absolutely. In fact, I think in a group of 12 to 1, personalized learning will actually improve because of the smaller cohort size. And we will continue to have learning support. I met with Shiri today to talk about exactly what that will look like. Because learning support is one-on-one and each learning support person has their own office, they can continue to meet with students, obviously wiping down tables and chairs, et cetera, in between, but we will absolutely have individualized instruction.
Will you go back to actual grades versus credit or no credit?
I believe we will, yes. Jody, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reasoning for going to credit incomplete was because of the emergency situation. And while we're still in an emergency situation, it is no longer acute. It's chronic. So, you know, I think we have time to really look at our grading and make sure that our grading fits with the way that we're delivering instruction and the way that the students are experiencing the instruction. I think we've had a lot of success in our STEM classes last year with standards-based grading, and I think that we'll be looking at that. But yes, I think barring any other acute exacerbations of the current situation, then yes, we'll go back to normal grading.
So there's a math question on which I missed. Luis, do you just want to, I'm having a hard time finding it. Can you just stop, like say your question aloud?
So there's like different math classes, and it seems, you know, complicated if all the people have math together are in different cohorts. So is the plan to put like the people of math together, put them in the same cohort? Because otherwise you have now 6 kids in one class and 4 in the other that have to do math over Zoom. Yeah, and then all the math is suddenly over Zoom because or you know, the math teacher has the other cohort. So like you have math with Jerry, so 4 are on Zoom in somebody else's class with Jerry in the other class. That seems like a mess.
You know, I think that it does absolutely raise some complications that we'll need to unravel scheduling wise. I think that what's more important than whatever complications that arise are the fact that we're not going to have these cohorts be heterogeneous in terms of academic ability or any other particular what's the word I'm looking for, characteristic.
Yeah, I mean, we can't group them by Hebrew level either.
No.
I mean, it's just not going to work.
And so 100%, I see what you're saying. I think that I have faith in our team to be able to figure out a way to mitigate some of the complications that would arise. And I think that we will be very, again, creative about the ways that we kind of combine the blended learning model, Zoom versus in-person instruction and one-on-one support when the students need it.
So will the library be open, and what protocols will you take?
So the library is going to be a classroom, and what Cressida is prepared to do is do a mobile library type thing like she's been doing, only it'll be easier because the kids will be on campus. She's going to have stations in both schools where kids can return their books, and she will take requests from them and deliver books to classrooms for kids.
Not sure if this was addressed, but if the specialists go into each classroom, won't that indirectly expose all staff and children to each other?
So the plan is for the specialists not to go into the classroom, but for the specialists to teach either pre-recorded. So I'm picturing Dorothy, for example, teaching a lesson, recording that lesson, and having the teacher who's with the students play back that lesson, pause when it's appropriate to pause, help them, etc. So the specialists will not be going in.
Can you please elaborate on the SEL support students will receive while on campus?
Yes, the SEL committee, were any of you in the group with the SEL group yesterday? I was not.
Can you just can you explain what SEL is, just to make sure that
sure, social emotional learning. And we have a group of teachers. We have, I think, 6 teachers who are working on plans around how to develop a social emotional learning curriculum specific around the needs right now with kids reintegrating into school, but also in general, like how to deal with their feelings, their emotions, their anxieties. And so the teachers are working on that. They're also the group that suggested having kids come to school early before the school year starts to get acquainted with things, to work through, again, some of the fears they may have. I can come with more specifics about what that group is working on. They just had their very first meeting this week.
Will every kindergarten cohort have an assigned teacher, or the teachers will be rotating between the cohorts? How many educators will be assigned to each kindergarten cohort?
So in the kindergarten, there are 6 teachers assigned total. So there'll be 4 of those teachers will be primarily with a group of 12, and then there'll be 2 teachers who will be providing additional instruction as well as breaks and preparation periods for those 4 teachers. The teachers, I am meeting with the teachers either this week or early next week to talk specifically around their schedule and about the roles of each teacher and what they will each plan and develop. But there will be 6 teachers, but mostly each child will have 1 or 2 teachers interact with them during the day. Well, not 1, 2, at least 2, because we really need the main teacher to have a break and time away from the kids at some point during the day.
You mentioned you were pausing the food service. Is the expectation that kids will bring lunch boxes to school?
Yes.
There are about 3 questions related to Hebrew leveling and cohorts and the groups, like how they will be divided for Hebrew class.
Oh, I thought I addressed it. No, I can repeat. So the Hebrew will be still with the same, we will follow the ability groups. We'll have Hebrew 1, Hebrew 2, and Hebrew 3. But because the students who are sitting in the classroom, the 12 students in the classroom, they are mixed in groups. When Hebrew starts, they will put the earphones, and that's something also applies to math, because we are actually purchasing soundproof earphones to support that they don't hear what's happening around them. And so they will still have their groups by ability. And in addition to inside the classroom, there will be also once a week or every 2 weeks, they will do something outside of the classroom so they can be in person with the teacher.
How will you do contact tracing?
We're going to hire a medical person to figure that out. And we're going to rely on the state health department and county health people to provide that service and support to us.
Have you considered starting early in August and having one long break from Thanksgiving all the way to New Year's?
So we considered it, and based on the number of questions I've answered we're working on it, I'm just concerned we're not going to be ready if we don't take the 70 days we have between now and August to do this well. We had talked about possibly starting, a few days early to do that. But in order to take that entire period off, we'd have to start 3 weeks early, and we're just not going to be ready to do that.
What happens to the cohort if the teacher is out sick with COVID or something else, or has a family emergency?
Well, that cohort probably gets me or Smita or Sharon or Jody or Aura or one of our administrative team, or possibly one of our teachers who will be providing breaks as their teacher. And we are trying to identify as many people as we can who can be subs to us, former teachers in our school, and other folks that we know well, who know our children well.
There are a lot of thank yous, by the way, Carol. And
oh, good. Thank you all.
Yeah, comments, which and Louise has some great suggestions in there, lots of them.
Awesome.
I'm taking down. Aura and I are taking down all of those.
Yeah, and we'll just download the chat, so it's fine. We'll have it. So Michelle's question. So don't we haven't ignored you. And David, your question was addressed earlier. We'll come back to that. Michelle, I would like to hear Plan B articulated. Sounds as if all the effort to open might be better spent on improving the remote instruction.
Well, we're doing both. So we can articulate Plan B at our next meeting, what the remote learning, the changes. I can tell you briefly, our plan, if we go back to remote learning, is to extend the school day, not all on Zoom, but to make the school day longer, to offer breaks more in the, a couple breaks, longer breaks in the morning and the afternoon, but to offer instruction throughout the day. We've learned a lot about how to get materials organized ahead of time. We've learned a lot about how to prep things so that parents and kids aren't scrambling to be ready at the time. We also, our teachers, many of our teachers are, the entire Hebrew team, for example, and many of our other teachers are engaged in learning this summer about how to do distance learning better. So I think we'll have some best practices that we'll all be learning from. And we can go into more detail about that at our next meeting.
High temperature is just one symptom of COVID-19, especially for kids. Symptoms may be very mild. Have you considered if feasible for everyone to be tested prior to the beginning of the school year?
Yeah, that question has come up a couple of times, and I think it's actually a really good idea and something I'm going to look into to see how we can do that. I think I think that would ease a lot of people's minds, mine included.
And I think David's question that I skipped, because it was earlier, is, okay, I came on late, so possibly has been addressed in the earlier grades. How do you envision dealing with physical distancing, and how many hours a day would K1 and 2 likely meet in person?
So our plan is to have a full school day from 8:30 till 3:15 with, you know, some staggered start. And I did see the suggestion around having parents sign up for a certain time to come to school. I think that's an excellent idea as well. The distancing piece, we're going to do our best. We know kids in kindergarten don't necessarily understand 6 feet, although I bet they'll all know how far 6 feet is, you know, after a few weeks of school. But realistically speaking, we know it's not going to necessarily be always 6 feet apart, but we're gonna do our best, and we're certainly going to do things that I think, even more importantly, hand washing, wiping down surfaces, and making sure kids who are sick are not at school.
If sorry.
You're doing great, Smita.
Some private school, we're almost at the end of the questions, and so we're getting new ones. So some private schools are asking families to quarantine 1 to 2 weeks before school starts to be fair to the rest of the families in the school once kids are together. Would you consider that?
I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something we would recommend and ask people to do. You all tell me how that would go. Would people do that? I mean, I think we are preparing a communication right now about community responsibility and about Jewish values and about all these pieces that we're asking people to do. And I hope everybody would. And I think it's an excellent suggestion. I don't know if it's possible for everyone, but I think it's a great idea.
Will it be possible to get a list of materials we should prepare at home in case we move to online learning again? Example, printer, art materials, etc.
Absolutely, yeah.
For families who will keep students home, could we get a list of textbooks and workbooks so we can purchase a set from an online seller to avoid having to come to campus?
Sure, sure. Somebody's writing these things down, right?
We just have to download this file, so it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. There are a lot of great suggestions from our parents because we've got an awesome bunch about, you know, testing and what works, what doesn't, and thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, we really do appreciate that. I mean, this is my first pandemic, and I think for all of us it is, unless you're over 100 years old. So I think every idea is awesome, and we're going to gain so much from this experience. I don't think it's all going to be worth it, but I think we're all going to learn a lot.
I want to just also say that Vera's comment about COVID testing can be painful, having gone through it and had my brain swabbed. Yeah. I hear it, and that would certainly be part of any discussion about whether we were going to institute testing and what kind, and antibodies or not or whatnot. So thank you for putting that there, and we hear you.
Yeah, I screamed. I was tested and I screamed. It was really intense. And so
my scream got caught and I couldn't actually vocalize anything. That's how painful it was.
Wow.
I think it's a great idea to have the kids tested. I just think we have to, weigh that against other things too.
Right. Yeah. So we have one more question. If that's the case, what about extracurricular activities not at Hausner? In terms of, think about in the summer dealing with, hold on. This was, Bo, can you give the context of your question, please?
It was just a follow-up to Maya's question because she was asking, will this school ask that families quarantine 1 to 2 weeks before school starts? But let's say you do that, but then your kids are in extracurricular activities that are not at Hausner. The quarantining before was pointless. So I guess my question is will Hausner limit us on the extracurricular activities afterwards?
I mean, I think that's kind of an overreach and something we're probably not going to be able to do. I mean, I think we're going to to make suggestions. We're going to ask for cooperation. We're going to ask for people to do common sense things. But to be really straightforward, we can't control all of this, and there is going to be, we're going to mitigate things. We're going to put all the precautions in place, and everybody can do all that in their home life too, and still catch this disease. So I think we're going to do our best, and we're going to, communicate. We're going to ask for people to do that, but I don't think we can honestly say, yeah, everybody needs to stay home for 2 weeks, get tested, and not interact with anybody outside their cohort. I know that's unrealistic.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting it. I was just trying to be consistent.
Right.
If we require that, then we need to follow it up with that. But I'm personally not suggesting it. Right.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't hear you, and I didn't mean to imply that either. But I just think we need to be. We've got to be. We're a community. We've all got to exercise community values. We've all got to take care of each other, and I think some responsibility. If we all take some responsibility for that, we'll all get through a great fall at school.
Is it a reasonable assumption that overnight field trips will probably be canceled?
Unfortunately, yes, I believe that is a reasonable assumption until we have a reliable vaccine.
Pretty much the others are, there's no more questions in the chat unless someone wants to, speak up with a question.
Carol, will you be available? Oh, I was going to say, would you be available for people to follow up after, with any questions?
Oh yeah, of course. Yes, absolutely. And we will 100% follow up on any question that I didn't answer or said we need to get back to you with more information. We will. And yes, you can get a copy of the recorded Zoom to watch.
I have a question. This is
Yes.
Yael. My question is regarding traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Are you expecting people to not travel during the school year?
We would prefer that people follow all the guidelines put out by the local health authorities. And so whatever their position currently is on travel, we would prefer that people follow that guideline.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is Tali.
Yes.
So I heard some of the private schools are considering, and some of them actually are doing it, opening earlier in August. Mm-hmm. Because there is an assumption or thinking that maybe in the winter kids will be back at home, or maybe just to enjoy the great weather and the summer, and just you can be more outdoor in school and have the classes outside. Is Hausner considering opening a bit earlier?
We aren't at this time considering that. We are planning on using some of the time before school starts for small groups or one-on-one appointments for kids to come to school. We really feel that to prepare the campus, to prepare the teachers, and to prepare the facilities, we're going to need the 70 days we have between now and the first day of school.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, actually, a follow-up.
Sure.
It's about kindergartners and masks.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, I mean, my son has tried one on, but it's hard to have it straight or have it on right. He might need help putting it back on. I
think that'll be a part of the kindergarten curriculum this year.
Okay.
Will be all about putting on our masks, and I've seen the teachers, putting masks on teddy bears, and I mean, I think there'll be a lot of that sort of thing.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't worry.
So he'll learn how to put it on.
He'll learn how to put it on. He'll be great at it. We have a lot of future surgeons coming to Hausner in the fall. We'll be ready.
I had a follow-up. I'm sorry, I jumped in late, so it's possible that you touched on this, but to Bo's question with regard to extracurricular activities outside of Hausner. So maybe I'm misunderstanding, but as I understand it, Santa Clara County currently is only allowing you to be in one cohort of 12 kids at a time, meaning if you're at this camp, you can't go 4 hours later to another camp. Would the same thing apply for our school if that's still the regulation by the county, meaning they're in school and so they can't go to baseball or soccer or swim?
Yeah, we would ask people to follow the same guidelines, whatever the guidelines are at that time, which I don't think any of us know for sure what they'll be. We would ask everybody to follow them.
Thank you. And thank you guys for doing such an amazing job. I can't even express how proud I am for being a part of this community. It's amazing.
Well, tell all your friends and have them come to Hausner. We'd love to welcome more families and children to our school.
What a great ending, Carol.
Yes.
Beautiful. Very beautiful.
Hillary has trained me on what to say at those moments. So,
very nice.
Yes. All right. Thank you all so much for coming. We will be back in July, on July 8th. Welcome you all back. And in between, if you have questions, we're here. And keep those really great ideas coming too. We really appreciate it. We also feel very fortunate. I feel very fortunate to have all of you as partners because you have some terrific ideas, and we're going to do our best and make this work and get back to Hausner. So have a great evening, great rest of your week.